takes such a long time to get a visa. Sometimes you don't even get a visa. And some people even end up being stranded at the airport because they get there and there's nothing. They can't go back. They can't come. And so they spend 2, 3, 4 days, imagine, at the airports. So what are you going to do about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good. Thank you, Chair. Dr. Mutua, I would want to ask you 1 or 2 questions. We've got countries which normally offer us scholarships, university scholarships, college scholarships. Some of the friendly countries are India, Cuba, Algeria, Pakistan, Hungary, amongst others. I remember a couple of years back, the Indian High Commission telling me there were 100 vacancies for technical training colleges in India. But the scholarships can only come through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But when I went to follow up with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was told they were not available. But the Indian High Commission told me they were there. And many like them are there. So what criteria is it being used to distribute those scholarships to deserving Kenyans and not being hawked to people to buy them? Because if it's not going to help the ordinary citizens and it's going to be hawked or sold to people, then it doesn't help at all. Secondly, our balance of trade. Many countries, our balance of trade is in favor of the other countries. What do you think you will do to even market our miraa so that our farmers in Nyambene can and Tigania can at least get something out of miraa, because that is one thing which is, I think it is at the core of our government as well. Thank you.
Dr. Mutua.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, there's a question about labor migration and Kenyan jobs. It is quite instructive. I watched the morning interview or vetting whereby Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi talked about the 480 billion shillings that are remitted from overseas, 350 to 480 billion shillings. Actually, the diaspora remits more money to Kenya. It's our chief foreign exchange earner than even coffee, tea, and others. And we'd like to grow this, but need to be done in a very, very organized place. And so it is important for us to take advantage of this. There is no system as there is in Philippines, for example, whereby the government goes out to teach people how to look for jobs overseas and also train them and give them opportunities to find jobs. So if I am confirmed, I'm going to set up a unit in the ministry to teach Kenyans and also guide Kenyans on how to secure jobs overseas. How do you qualify for a job overseas? How do you become competitive? Because Kenyans are very bright. Kenyans are very well educated. They are very good. They can get jobs and they can remit money, but they have not been given an opportunity and shown. I'm also going to ask our embassies to be telling us, so we can tell Kenyans and publish widely, of opportunities that Kenyans can be able to look at and be able to go into the private sector, but also more so into the United Nations and other international bodies, so that Kenyans are also over there. One of the things that we'd like to do is also, we'd like to get our Kenyans overseas to save, because they're remitting a lot of money. Our president has been talking about Kenyan saving. We'd like to also get our Kenyans overseas to also save. Let them save here so that we can be able to borrow that money that is saved here or use that money. We've been talking about an infrastructure bond for years. We'd like to get that infrastructure bond realized so that Kenyans overseas can say we build that highway with our money from overseas. We also want to set up a network so that when you send your money here, you know the money is being used for the right use as a member of the diaspora. The second question was about the pending bills by Mheshimiwa Mule, Mr. Chairman, through you. And I was also surprised to see in the news about 2.8 billion, 1.6 billion from the control of budget. And we have a plan of how this money, and it was very clear how the money would be paid. It was very clear to the controller of budget how the pending bills were accumulated. Some of them were accumulated because we had very many development projects. If you have a lot of development projects, others will carry over into new financial years. When some of them carry over to new financial years, they become pending bills, and they are listed, even though some of them are ongoing. There are others whereby we had talked to the control of budget that we had said as a government I would not be able to pay them because they were white elephants. There are some things that were listed where a school was built, but you go to the ground, there's no school built. If I paid that pending bill, then I would be arrested and locked up because that is corruption. So that is how some of them have accumulated. There are others which really are real. We have poor exchequer, we're able to correct, and it's a challenge. We're dealing with the first 10 years of devolution. It was about balancing everything, getting everything going, but by the end, I'm very confident that I ran a very good government that was recognized, that had a lot of success in many, many areas, that was able to be an epitome or an example to many other counties. Mheshimiwa, through you, Mr. Chairman, talked about victimization of Kenyans through the cartels, and it is true. I have some tricks up my sleeve, and I don't want to speak about them publicly right now because, you know, these cartels will work on them. But I can assure you, within a few weeks, I'm dealing with these cartels because I've been made to understand that some of them are even owned by government officials. And they're going to do everything because they're making tons and tons of money out of our people. And some of the things that we want to do is that it's a clear recording. If you're going to send our kids overseas for work, you need to have a record of who you are sending. You need clearance by the foreign ministry, not only by the labor ministry. And when they arrive in that other country, we'd like to get within 2 weeks to know which home, their domicile, and where they are working. If we don't get that list, then that organization will not be allowed to send any other person to that country ever again until that is met. Furthermore, it is the right of every Kenyan to bear their own passport upon themselves. And we are going to tell the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that the Kenyan passport belongs to the Kenyan. And you only surrender your passport if you're getting a visa and others. You cannot surrender your passport because you're working. And if they can't agree for Kenyans to keep their passports among themselves, let's go to other countries. We don't have to go there and be slaves because they take our passports and we can't even travel anywhere. So we are going to ensure some of these things are not taken for granted. It's all about the government putting down its foot and saying, we are friendly nations, let's treat our people with respect. Mr. Chairman, the question about the Kenyan visas, and this goes hand in hand with the strength of the Kenyan passport. If you go to Google, you'll find that our Kenyan passport is number 75 in terms of the countries, in terms of its strength. This is because we are not really, our passport is not very strong. We can't go to many countries without visas. One of the things that I want to do, if I'm confirmed and sworn in, is to ensure that we get bilateral agreements with many countries signed, so that we can have reciprocal, so that Kenyans do not need a visa to go to some countries. Most of the time, these countries put what in Swahili we call vikwazos, because they believe that Kenyans will be going there, misbehaving and not coming back. But with the plan of President Ruto to grow the economy from the bottom up, Kenyans will not have a reason to flee their country. There will be opportunities for people to go, trade, and come back home. The other thing is also to look at some of the agreements that are sitting in Parliament that we're going to bring. For example, there is an MOU between the United States and the Kenyan government to quicken how Kenyans get visas to the United States, but it has sat in Parliament for a while. I'm going to fast track it so that it is approved, and it is so we can sign some of those agreements and many treaties that will strengthen our passport. I also would like to, if confirmed, is to introduce what is called a service passport for senior public government officials, so that there is a diplomatic passport, there's a regular passport, and also a service passport. This is done by many countries, so that our senior government officials have a service passport that enables them to get visas in a faster way to be able to go and carry out their duties, which may not per se be diplomatic, but they're able to carry out their duties. It will put less pressure on the diplomatic passport, and also it will ensure that our passport gets a better ranking at the end, so that the mamambogas and others can also be able to go to many countries without having to go for a visa. The Mheshimiwa, through you, Mr. Chairman, Dawood asked about scholarships. Very, very important. And this is because of lack of follow-up. I've noticed that there are very, very many treaties, agreements, follow-up of meetings that have really not taken root. One of the things that I plan to do, if I'm confirmed and sworn in, is to ensure that there is a person sitting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with direct linkages to every other ministry. Because we want to go trade, but we're also looking at these specific scholarships to other places. We want to be able to announce these scholarships to the public. Si mambo ya kujuana. I have a good friend of mine, if I can use him an example, called Professor Frederick Iraki. Grew up very poor, was teaching somewhere in Western Kenya. He saw an advert in the newspapers, I think it was Taifa Leo, and he was able to apply to the foreign ministry for a scholarship on merit without knowing anybody. He got a scholarship. He's now a full professor. Went overseas, studied, full professor. Hakujua mtu. So we want to create a system whereby children of the poor, when we say the child of the poor will be able to sit at the same table with the child of the rich, so that you don't have to know anybody for you to be able to get these scholarships. And we'll publish them. And also, I'll be on my tours overseas. I'd like to be accompanied by members of parliament, because I have seen when I was working in government, whenever there's a team that comes from the United States, from England and other countries, they bring their members of parliament, they bring their members of Congress to accompany the minister. I'd like to get that habit, because you understand and you can be able to lobby for me and lobby for the country of Kenya. More scholarships and more opportunities for Kenyans. It is not just a job of executive. This is a shared, I want to have work together with Parliament, because it is about Kenya. Kenya is not just about the Foreign Office. It's about all of us as leaders being able to support our people here in Kenya. In terms of balance of trade, yes, a problem, because majority of our products don't have value addition. So we are selling our products raw. So we find that we are importing finished products. We actually sent our products overseas and they are imported to Kenya with value addition. The Kenya Kwanza government is all about value addition. We like to add value to our products so that more money can remain in the pockets of wananchi, and this will ensure that our balance of trade is balanced. In terms of miraa, we look at how do we package our miraa, but it's not about package, it's how do you market our miraa overseas, and how do you get smooth transition, because that is a product so that the people of Tigani, as you put it, can also have more money in the pocket. So this is a critical part of the plan of Kenya Kwanza. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We agreed no lifting of hands. Yes. Naisula, Gikaria, Raso, Posing, Emase.
Thank you, Chair. To Honorable Mutua, many things...
Actually, there are only two of you left after Emase, Murugara, and Mukami. You can take those 6.
All right, thank you, Chair. To Honorable Mutua, many think that you have zero international experience. What are your views on self-determination in relation to this nomination? Is self-determination real or a mirage? And where the experience actually matters? And the second question, in your view, what new roles will the State Department of Diaspora Affairs do that the existing government structures don't do or will not do, remembering that in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, it was actually to be a ministry? What issues do you think will need to be handled under the Diaspora Affairs docket? Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe, Chair, at some point in Parliament, at some time, I think you'll need to give a ruling as to whether this aspect of the domestic workers out of the country whether it is a foreign affair matter or it's a labor, or sometimes we leave it to labor and maybe it is foreign, or it's the two of them. And I think your direction will really give us some answers to this.
It is cross-cutting. They live here
exactly.
under labor.
Correct.
They're out there under foreign.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's when they are addressing that, then it's a cross-cutting issue. Maybe the two ministries need.
The government has collective responsibility, and the minister, if approved, may wish to work very closely with labor to ensure that they synchronize the process and continue monitoring and managing our Kenyans out there.
Thank you, Speaker. And I also want to thank the nominee. You know, he has actually specified, specifically which some of these countries are. You know, the issue has also been generalized, but now when it comes with a particular area that is bringing this problem, then I think it is important. He also mentioned that he wants some of these properties that he has is out of the income he earned when he worked in the Middle East, if I heard him correctly. Maybe he needs to give us an experience of then and what is happening now. But the very last one, Honourable Chair, is about the questionnaire, number 27. And I had the nominee giving us a very emotive and very, you could feel where he has come from, and the assistance that he got when he was rising and through his education and missing out to school because of school fees. But Honourable Chair, if you look at number 27 in the pro bono charity work, donation to charity and things, he writes not applicable. I mean, Honourable Chair. How then could you have benefited from well-wishers and good Samaritan, and yet in your tenure, you're not giving back? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yes. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Mutua, if Parliament will approve your nomination, you will actually be the number 2 diplomat for Kenya. And the ministry that you will be heading is the face of Kenya out there. In the last Parliament, we passed the Act, that is the Foreign Service Act. And our foreign policy is anchored on economic, cultural, environmental, and diaspora. Now, from your last job, you have been the governor for Machakos for 10 years. I think it's not a mean feat. It means the people of Machakos saw that you are doing certain things right, maybe not 100%. So my question is, what is the new thinking or new initiative that you are likely to bring to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs so that it can grow on the pillars around which the Kenyan foreign policy is anchored? Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Gikaria, switch off your mic, please.
Sorry.
Crossing.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Mr. Speaker, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as said by Honorable Rasu, is actually the face of Kenya outside there. And by so doing, Honorable Speaker and the Chair, it is one of the most prestigious ministries to work in. I have assessed, Honorable Chair, and I want to ask if the nominee is approved by this committee and finally the House, to go and do audit of small communities. Now they come from Kenya Kwanza, which is bottom-up economically. I want him also, when he's going there, to look at the bottom-up community, so that to see, actually, is foreign affairs face of Kenya. It may be face of Kenya outside there. What about at home? And I want you to be very specific to some of these small communities, including Pokot community. How many are they in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? And I'm taking an example. I'm not saying only Pokot, maybe Pokomo or elsewhere in this country. How many are there in the ministry? So that at least you, as Honorable Garia says, you bring real change if you are approved by this parliament. So that the face of Kenya does not become face of Kenya outside there as ministry, but at home is face of some few communities. Thank you, Speaker.
My turn. Thank you, Chair.
Yes,
my question is to the nominee. Why do you think you are the best fit for this position? What is it that you're going to do differently? And I was also looking at the ministry itself. We do have the returning diplomats. You know, we take these individuals out there and they come back with a lot of skills, global experience. What are you going to do in terms of developing and retaining this talent and making good use of these individuals when they return, probably by making sure that they are, reassigned responsibilities or deployed to other ministries or boards where they can add more value and contribute towards the development of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the nominee. Initially, agriculture was the largest foreign exchange earner. I think later it was overtaken by tourism, and now it's been overtaken by diaspora. And with the continuation of what is happening out there, especially to our labor force, that may also go. And one reason why agriculture was overtaken is because of branding. That as Kenyans, we do not brand our produce properly, and maybe we do not sell those brands as brands of Kenya. For example, we have coffee and tea. But out there, whether it is in Turkey, it is Dubai, you'll be told that the coffee, the tea they are taking is from Egypt, which is surprising, and that tea possibly is from Kenya. The coffee, and we have some of the best coffee in the world. You're told it's Brazil or Thailand or from wherever. As the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I think you're going to be the driver of the policy brand Kenya. How do you propose to work with the Ministry of Trade so that this is realized and we are able to add more foreign exchange and as a result grow the economy as we intend to do?
Kami.
Our nominee, I have one question for you regarding the visas. Kenyans have complained about the amount of time and resources spent when trying to obtain visas to visit countries that we enjoy cordial relationships with, such as South Africa, America, UK. The nationals of this country do not suffer the same inconvenience, and some even get visas on arrival. What will your ministry do to address this concern? Because it's a tall order.
Yes, Dr. Mutu, answer those 7 questions, or the 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mheshimiwa Laisuda asked about my international experience. I lived overseas for about nearly 15 years. As a student, I worked there. I know how life is. I've interacted with foreigners. And so I have a knowledge. When I was government spokesperson, my matters were not just local, but also dealt with a lot of international issues through the cabinet office. And the whole issue of self-determination is very, foreign policy believes in that every country has a right to self-determination. Every country has a right to enjoy its freedoms without being attacked by another country. And we want to be able to be seen as a solid country that has a foreign policy that does not keep on shifting with the wind. So we are quite solid about how we do things. because of living overseas also with the diaspora, I'm quite aware of the challenges of the diaspora. I know that the National Diaspora Council of Kenya has never been operationalized. That is one of the first things that if I'm approved and sworn in that I will do. I want to enter into a discussion with the United Kingdom, with the United States and other countries where we've got a lot of Kenyans went there, fell out of status, they're hiding. They don't have status, they can't come back home, to see ways of waiving the problems they faced without them being deported, so they can get waivers, so they can leave and get legalized where they are, so they can be able to contribute very, very well to this country. We're looking at being able also to sign more MOUs that will be able to help the diaspora be able to work very well between us and then the banking field and others as we continue. So I feel that I'm quite prepared in terms of my personal experience and experience working in government for over 20 years. The second question is about the foreign affairs and issues which, Mr. Chairman, you're able to answer very well about the cross-cutting issues between Labour. But we'd like to make it very clear that if I'm approved and sworn in, issues of Kenyans overseas will fall in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think Foreign Affairs has been passing the buck a lot to the Ministry of Labour. But Ministry of Labour will also have to get its act together. And because Kenya Kwanza, we are a team, we'll be able to work as a team to harmonize. So that even though there's processing done and approvals, we're working hand in hand. But when Kenyans are overseas, working overseas, I don't want them to go to any embassy and being told this is not a foreign affairs issue, this is a labor issue, Ministry of Labor issue. You're in a foreign country. You don't know anybody about labor. You know the mission. You want to be protected by your mission. I want people to be proud of the country they come from and to know that their country has their back day and night at every single time. There was the issue about the properties, yes, and the questionnaire. As a Christian, the Bible says that when you give with your left hand, your right hand should not know what you've been given. A lot of my pro bono work and the work that I've been doing through the church. And I don't like listening to what I've done as a Christian, because you're not supposed to go and scream out there what you've done as a Christian. I sponsor more than 100 children through school myself, because I know how it changed my life by being sponsored, and many other things that I'm able to do that I don't like blowing my own horse, because I do it from the bottom of my heart and as a service to God, not as a service to man. There is the third question about being the number 2 diplomat for Kenya, and the Foreign Service Act, and the whole issue of the economic culture and trade. We are moving. You know, one of the reasons that Kenya is looked down upon even with visas is because we're a poor economy. You know, if you're poor, people don't take you seriously as much as if you're rich. If you're rich, you're taken seriously. And the whole idea is to make our country rich. We want people to know that Kenya can be a land of opportunity. And my job will be able to do what I can. For example, my dream and I would like to work with members of parliament and governors so that I could go out there with my ambassadors if I am approved. And we say as a country that we are going to bring to every county a new factory that will be able to provide jobs to our Kenyans and grow the economy so that we can all grow and make money. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money in the pocket. And we want our people to have more money in the pocket. And that's one of the things that we've said as a government that we would like to be able to do. Mr. Chairman, the other question was about the audit of small communities. I have to admit, Mr. Chairman, that I was flabbergasted, awed, shocked, amazed, confused when I looked at the list of recent appointments and other appointments to the senior levels in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It clearly does not represent the balance of the face of Kenya. This, with I'll be able to advise the President so we can be able to correct this. Every Kenyan needs to know they have a place in their government. And we are going to make sure that every Kenyan, regardless of where you are born, regardless of who your parents are, regardless of which corner you come from, you feel that you can participate in nation building in the various government departments. And I believe this is what our President is all about. And also to look at issues of skill-based. We want people who are skilled to know that you can work hard, you can be chap-chap, and be able to move move up the ladder so that it's not skewed about who is knowing who. For example, there's the issue about postings in the ministry. We need to make it public. You know, now it's a hidden secret. You know, you actually don't know who is being posted until you find out somebody is missing. And you realize they have been posted somewhere. We want everybody to know who's been posted where, so that people say, huyu ameenda mara tano, nimeenda mara mbili. Why can't I also go and serve my country outside? We want to create a sense of fairness so that people feel that they are fair. Mr. Chairman was also asked the question about why do I think I'm the best for this position. I want to thank the President for giving me this opportunity. I've worked overseas. I have studied communication, and diplomacy is my second nature. As a government spokesperson, I was able to interact with any people, and I know what it takes. And I believe I have the talent and the gusto and the strength to be able to transform and change the way the ministry operates for the benefit of Kenyans. We have a clear plan in Kenya Kwanza, and I was part of the architects of that plan, so I understand clearly what we need to do to work in that ministry, and I believe that I'll be well placed and I'll make Kenya proud as we move on. The sixth question was about the diaspora and how we are being overtaken, and it is true. Mr. Chairman, you find that even flowers come from this country, they go to another country, then they're sent to another country, and people think the flowers come from that other country. We need to find a way of branding everything that comes from our Kenya, and that's when it comes down to even the value addition. We need to add value to our products. We need to be able to say this comes from Kenya, and be able to do it proudly and get it out there so that whenever anything is value added, we're able to make more money. And lastly, there was the issue about obtaining visas and the cordial relationship with some countries. People come here, they're able to walk in, but for us, getting into some countries like going to heaven by the process of the visas. These are some of the issues that I'll be able to work closely with the ambassadors, work closely with this country, sign bilateral agreements so as to make it easier for Kenyans. And we'll try and start with Nipe Nikupe. If we do it for you, do it for us. And see how it is. Because we are in the same world. But in the same world, we need also to see how we can improve the standing of our passport. Some countries in Africa, like Botswana, for example, their passport is quite strong. They can just walk into the US and just, in some other countries and just, get their visa on arrival. Whereas here, it's a process. So we want to get our country to that level. Having lived overseas, having traveled, I know what it means for people to line up for visas. We want to remove that shame, and I believe I'm up to the task. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Mutua, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Our athletes, they give us the most visibility everywhere. Through them, our national anthem is played in most unexpected places. But increasingly, it's been happening that when our athletes go out there to conquer the world, they don't enjoy any protocol support. And the head of protocol in the country lies in your ministry. What arrangements do you have to ensure that our greats like Eliud Kipchoge and others have at least some protocol support wherever they go to arrange their press briefings, their feasibility, their marketing, and all these things that we see being done to athletes from even lesser countries? When Maria Mutola was the conqueror of the world from Mozambique, she was accorded protocol at the level of a minister. Of course, ours are too many. We may not take it to that level. But what are you planning to do for our athletes? You find petty traders carrying diplomatic passports, and our world-conquering athletes don't have. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very good question. There are two ways. I was lucky to be a journalist because I lived in Australia at the time and witnessed the 2000 Olympics. And I saw our athletes and some of the struggles they went through. And I love sports, so I've been able to see some of these things. And one of the programs that I have in place is to set up our protocol officers, not only for athletes, but even to Kenyans. Kenyans have been complaining that when they go to embassies, they're not treated well. They're not treated with respect when they live in the diaspora. And I want to ensure that when you go to an embassy, to a high commission as a Kenyan, you are treated with the respect and dignity that you deserve as a Kenyan, and you can come out saying, yes, my country really loves me. So I'm going to institute a program to take care of athletes and even top business people when they go to these countries, because they are also income earners. They are bringing foreign exchange to our country. It is also a shame that even some of our soccer players, we've seen them in the past sleeping in airports because, there was no proper protocol or there's no money. And so I'll be coming back to Parliament and requesting for funds so that we can always have an emergency kitty in our high commissions and embassies, so we can be able to fly and take care of our soccer players. If there's a player or athletes that has fallen in the wayside, to remove that shame and give them the recognition that they deserve. We also, one of my plans that I put through as Kenya Kwanza plan is also to have a program for our athletes on how to invest and save their money. So that as they make their money, they are not just spending their money. Part of their money is going into saving, because you cannot run forever. After a while, somebody else will be able to run faster than you. A better soccer player will play better than you. So that you have something left, so that you can be able to invest, get into business or get into work, so that you don't die poor. Then it becomes a shame that you represented this country, but you're dying poor. So we can be able to set up that in collaboration with the ministry in charge of sports. Then lastly is we need to have galas and recognition when they come back and treat them well. When it comes to issues of diplomatic passports, I totally agree with you. And I'll be, if I'm nominated, if I'm approved and sworn in, I'll be taking to Cabinet a memo to discuss on who should and who should not have a diplomatic passport. With the introduction of the service passport, we need to come up with a clear criteria. In my mind, for example, I think that members of parliament who are our top diplomats, because they understand the problems on the ground, they should be able to be facilitated to go overseas with the right documentation to be able to work, not just people who are connected to have diplomatic passports. But also we need to save the sanctity of the diplomatic passport, because if a diplomatic passport is given to everybody around, it lowers the ranking of our passport, which means that our Kenyans who are down there, Mama Mbogas, now have to line up for more visas. So it's a balancing act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Mutua. Now we're coming to an end of your hearings. I give you 3 minutes to tell us your wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the committee, and I want to thank the members for the very, very insightful questions that they have been able to ask me, and I hope I've been able to answer them. And I humbly request you to approve my nomination so that I can be given an opportunity to serve this country in a way that I know will transform this country. I want to be able to work clearly to make sure that Kenya is known to be a country that wants to trade, not aid. We don't want to go and beg and get aid. Yes, aid is good. We'll be getting support, but we want to trade. Kenyans do not want a hand down. Kenyans want a hand up. Kenyans want to be given opportunities, and that is where I'm coming in. In terms of diaspora, I'm going to fight for the rights of diaspora. Having been in the diaspora myself, understand the pains, I'll be able to work on those things. Marketing Kenya is very important. Kenya needs to be also a conference place where conferences can come to this country and we make a lot of money. It's a low-hanging fruit, so we're going to support that a lot. Even as we champion climate change, because as you know, in this country, how the weather is, we have to fight for climate change, matters of environment and others. And I'll work with everybody to ensure that the Kenya Kwanza government under President RUTO'S succeeds, because we are working as a team to ensure our country grows. Mr. Chairman, I want to assure you that mbele iko sawa.
Thank you, Dr. Mutua. You are now released and at liberty to go to your other duties. Honorable members, we have saved 5 minutes from Dr. Mutua. I give you a stretch of 5 minutes as we ask the sergeant to look for Mama Alice Wahome as our next nominee. Bring in Alice Wahome in 5 minutes.